Many RPGs feel like combat arenas with lore attached, but I'd like to make the argument that they don't necessarily feel lived in. And if you're looking to make your RPG world feel lived in, then keep watching. If done right, the players remember the ambience of a kingdom or settlement, the smells, the people, the weather, the sights, the sounds, safe and warm fireside taverns, even strange food. And that all relies on jumping into the setting rather than just going after the next sack of hit points. People often scoff at the lowly tavern, but done right can create memorable places and memorable people that inhabit them. Not many dungeon masters lean into folk tales or even folk songs. Start singing a folk song that relates to the character's current adventure and watch the immersion deepen. That is, after they laugh at you trying to sing a folk song. But they'll get it, and immersion will begin to happen, especially if you give them the lyric sheet. What the characters, or rather players, don't typically remember. The characters, or rather the players, aren't gonna give a crap about the kingdom history that happened 800 years ago. But if you place that tale around, say, a fireplace, in a tavern, out at a campsite, maybe stuffed into some folklore or a song, then you've got gold. This is different than a lore dump. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't need lore or history or any of that stuff for your campaign setting. In fact, quite the opposite. It's about the delivery process. We're talking about how does the world live? How does it breathe? That being said, your world probably doesn't need more lore. What it needs is culture to make that lore come to life. Most dungeon masters build the following: pantheons, wars between kingdoms, maps, factions, magic systems. These are friggin' amazing and needed. But what you need to lean into is this: how the people of your world relax, mourn, celebrate, waste time, flirt, what people might smoke or drink, how they pray. The small little rituals, they matter. The world becomes a quest dispenser rather than an actual society or societies. So ask questions like this: what do dwarves do after work? What does a wizard do while thinking? What games do soldiers play while waiting for battle? Tolkien constantly used meals, ale, songs, pipeweed, celebrations like Bilbo and Frodo's birthday, the quiet reflection of Gandalf and Bilbo smoking and drinking tea together. Middle-earth feels alive because people exist outside of the adventure. A major comfort talked about in Lord of the Rings is pipeweed. It's iconic because it represents culture, comfort, ritual, and identity. Players rarely remember a +1 sword, dungeon room dimensions, or kingdom timelines. They do remember this: the gnome circus that came to town, the haunted mead hall where ghosts appear during the Lantern Festival, the strange incense ritual at the temple, the wizard with the pipe smoke that smelled of chocolate and whiskey. Can you smell it? The tavern where everyone spoke only in whispers. In my own campaign setting, called the Samhain campaign, there is a festival called Ancestors' Harvest. In that festival, everyone makes a pilgrimage from all over the Samhain Vale to go to a specific location to pick pumpkins. They take these pumpkins back to their home. 3 days later, they carve jack-o'-lanterns out of them, and then their ancestors actually inhabit the pumpkins and speak to their relatives. By the way, sign up for the Samhain newsletter to get updates of the development of the Samhain Hearth and Horror campaign setting. Filling your world with celebrations, rituals, and folk festivals will make your campaign come alive and feel lived in. One of the easiest ways to make your world feel real: create cultural rituals. A few years back, I started experimenting with the same idea in my own campaign setting. One of the things I landed on was the ritual of pipe smoking. And I've created a whole integrated culture revolving around the smoking of pipes. Of course, due to my own hobby of pipe smoking as well as Tolkien. Here's a couple of highlights of what I've developed. Renowned pipe leaf. Houses of smoke, much like a tavern or ale house, but for piping. A goddess of smoke with a clerical order, and even an adventure in the temple of the goddess of smoke. Atmosphere becomes powerful when the players can use it, buy it, smell it, discuss it, collect it, ritualize it, and not just hear about it. They've got to interact with it. This turns the cultural ritual into gameplay. That's the secret. If your players can relate to the world, it will feel real and immersive. Fantasy is not memorable because dragons exist. It's memorable because people live there. Get this, the small things are what convinces the players that the big things matter. That's the idea that inspired me to write Hobry Leafburner's Guide to Piping. There's a link down in the dungeon if you are interested. So the bottom line is add culture, not just lore. Or better yet, culture that is informed by that lore. And at that point, you're going deeper. What are some cultural things that you've created in your game world? I'd love to know about it in the comments. I'd like to thank my Patreon members for making this video possible. Without you, none of this happens, so thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks for stopping by Agranak Studios today, and we'll see you on the next one. Later!